time to get controversial. Hey everyone, my name is Bridget. Welcome to my channel. For today's video, I'm going to talk about some topics that are controversial and kind of my unpopular opinions. I just kind of made a list of like 10 things that either don't make sense to me or bother me. I might step on some toes today. If any of you, want to come over here and fight me, well, you can't because we're in quarantine, so ha 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 ha. No, you might disagree with me. That's okay. That's the beauty of being a human. You have disagreements and you have varying opinions, and that's okay. So I'm gonna talk about mine today. If I really offend you, I'm really sorry. Let's get started. The first one I want to talk about today is loose substrate. So for some reason, when people hear the phrase loose substrate, they immediately think of things that are not great and things that you shouldn't use for your animals. But what I want to talk about with this is that not all loose substrate is bad, and I think a lot of us really should know that. One of the most popular loose substrates right now, which I myself use, is Eco-Earth. I have a love-hate relationship with Eco-Earth. I don't think that it's fantastic, but I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. I use it as a base substrate for my leopard geckos, but I cover it up with tons and tons of rocks, slate, giant pieces of leaf litter, but I don't really love it anymore. I'm kind of over it, I guess you could say. So I will be changing my leopard geckos substrate very soon. I don't think I'm being the worst leopard gecko parent ever, but at the moment, that's what they're on. There are arid bioactive substrates that someone could keep a leopard gecko on, and it is loose. So when you hear something about loose substrate, just please try and keep an open mind and let them explain further instead of automatically thinking, oh, well, she's not a good pet keeper because she keeps X, Y, and Z on loose substrate. Not all loose substrate is bad. My next topic is snakes don't climb. Y'all, I am so freaking passionate about this because yes, they do. It doesn't matter if it is a burrowing species, a western hognose, a Kenyan sand boa, something else that is meant to live underneath the substrate and you never see them. Every single snake is going to climb. They do this in the wild on trees and branches, leaves and shrubs. They're going to climb at some point. They may not climb all the time, that's not what I'm trying to say, but they are going to climb. So many people will say ball pythons don't climb, and if they climb, that means they're stressed. Absolutely not. I highly disagree with this. My ball pythons climb all the time and they are not stressed. Their husbandry is correct, their feeding is correct, their sheds are correct. They are just exploring. That's what they do. And in my opinion, I don't think it's right to have any sort of snake in your care and you don't provide them with anything to climb. If they just have a base flat enclosure with no elements to get up higher anywhere, I don't love that. And I think that you should provide them with at least one element that they can climb up. It can be vines, it can be a tree limb that you've sanitized, it can be large rocks that they can kind of go over. Provide them with anything that they can climb to exercise their bodies. The third thing that I want to talk about today is shedding in pieces versus shedding in sections. So many people think that they have poor husbandry if their snake sheds and it's not one whole solid piece. That is indicative of a wonderful shed. You've got great husbandry, everything went perfectly when it is all in one perfect piece and nothing's broken off. But sometimes, you guys, these sheds will rip against whatever they're rubbing on. If you have a large snake and they're a heavy-bodied snake, they can rip it that way. And I only say this because so many of you, I will see post your snake sheds and you're upset with yourself because it's not one full piece. If there are sections, but the sections are whole and they're not like ripped apart and like all these pieces are just flying all over the place, that is still a good shed. It just got ripped, so calm down. Be proud of yourself. That's still a really good shed. A bad shed is when the snake still has skin stuck to their body, and the shed that is in the enclosure might be off of their body, but it is in so many ripped up, jagged pieces. That is a bad shed. The next thing that I want to talk about is not really a big deal. It just kind of irritates me sometimes when people really give hate to other people on not using the most natural items ever. They think that you should only have a fully naturalistic enclosure and you can't use any material that is not natural. I see nothing wrong with using resin for hides, glass water bowls, plastic water bowls, jars as humid hides, or plastic containers as humid hides. Yes, they don't look the best, they don't look natural, but who cares? It's still about the animal at the end of the day. It's not necessarily about what their environment looks like. Truly, they are not gonna know the difference. So please stop hating on people who use unnatural elements in their enclosures because their animals are still healthy. Their animals are still fine. Leave them be. If they wanna put fake flowers in the enclosure versus leaves and sticks and rocks, fine, let them. But one other thing that I want to talk about with this is that when people talk about certain substrates or materials not being found in the wild, neither are glass bowls, neither are plastic containers, neither are fake flowers. None of those things are found in the wild. So if you're using one of those elements, but you think that a certain substrate is not great to be used because it's not found in the wild, you're contradicting yourself, so don't make those arguments. Quit being so judgmental and just let people keep animals how they want to keep them. Okay, thank you. Okay. The next thing that I want to talk about is enclosure size. I love that there are so many people who are upgrading enclosures or starting their animals in a large enclosure in the first place, and they say, my bearded dragon is kept in a 150-gallon enclosure. I think that is fantastic. What bothers me is when you emphasize the size of the enclosure based on gallons and the animal can really only access the bottom half of the enclosure. Not that people are bragging about the size of their enclosure. It is kind of, you know, well, my enclosure is better because it's this size. But if they can only access half of it, then what does that gallon capacity even matter anymore? Height is factored into the total capacity. And if they're not able to use that top half of the enclosure, they're not truly in that volume of enclosure. It doesn't really make sense to me to talk about you need to have this size enclosure or you're not giving them enough space if they can't really use all of that space. More space does not equal more space if they can't fully utilize it. I would rather see enclosures that are so fully enriched where the animal has so much access to all of that space than to see people brag about the fact that their animal is in this huge enclosure and then you see it and only half of it is available to that animal. The next thing that I want to talk about is anthropomorphism. This is a big thing in this community. I think that it can be harmful depending on how the person is handling it, but at the same time, I think that sometimes people really take it a little bit too literally. When you're holding your animal, you shouldn't say, oh, well, he likes this, or he's okay with this, or he thinks this is fun. My argument is, no, I don't know how they feel, but I can read how they feel. I can tell by my animal's body language whether they're comfortable or they're uncomfortable. I can tell when they feel like this is not something they want to do, or if they feel like it's something that they can tolerate for that moment. No, I don't truly think these animals enjoy being handled, but I can tell when it's a good day versus a bad day. That's how I'm able to ask them silly, stupid questions, even though they can't answer me, because I'm trying to read how they feel for that day. I'm pretty sure that I am able to tell when a human is not okay being next to me, so I can tell when an animal is not okay being next to me. I don't think that they carry human emotions, but I do think that they carry some sort of emotions where it's like, no dude, please leave me alone for the day, or you know what, I'm cool, I want to explore. I think in a lot of circumstances, the anthropomorphism can be dangerous when people think, oh, well, they're bored, they need a friend, so they try and cohabitate. That is where I think things can get dangerous. It's not to that level. The next thing that I want to talk about is room temperature. There are several animals that can be kept in room temperature. Pac-Man frogs, crested geckos, gargoyle geckos, what people are seeing when it comes to room temperature, they just hear the term room temperature and they think, okay, I don't have to provide them heat at all. My room temperature is perfectly fine. But when you look online and you research these animals, room temperature is between 75 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit. In my personal opinion, nobody in their right mind would purposefully keep their house at 85 degrees Fahrenheit. That is warm. No one is comfortable that way, and if you are, then fine, argue with me, that is okay, but I don't know anyone who is comfortable living all year round at 85 degrees Fahrenheit. That is hot to me. I would be dying. The normal room temperature that people seem to like to live in is really truly between 70 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit. They're not living between 75 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit. So when you see an animal that needs room temperature, please pay attention to what your room is actually sitting in and pay attention to the climate that the animal comes from and what they really require. A lot of them, like a crested gecko, they do best around 76 to 79 degrees Fahrenheit. So if your house is kept at 73 and they're living in a humid environment, that humidity is going to also lower about 1 or 2 degrees. That's really cold. When you look at something like a Pac-Man frog, they really thrive at the higher end of room temperature, being between 80 and 82 degrees Fahrenheit. It bothers me so bad when people keep animals who aren't required to have heat, they're comfortable in room temperature, but their room is not 75 to 85 degrees. It might be sitting around 75 to 77 and that's fine. But if the animal does require a little bit more heat, closer to 80, you have to provide them with that extra heat. I'm sorry. Room temperature does not always mean whatever your house is sitting at. It's within that range, and so many people don't actually live in that range, so please pay attention to that. My next topic is to please use supplemental heating or supplemental cooling if you live in harsh climates. I see so many people where the winters get very cold, they have snow for several months out of the year, and they are keeping reptiles that require heat. There are several animals that can stay perfectly comfortable and warm with just the heat mat or just the heat lamp or whatever. And let's say you don't have a central heating unit or whatever to warm your whole house, so your house gets down to a very cold, let's say 68 degrees Fahrenheit. It doesn't matter what kind of heat that you provide for that animal, they might still have that hot spot, but their ambient temperature in their enclosure is going to be much lower than it would be in the summer months. So I truly don't understand when people just remove one of the hides from their enclosure so that the animal is forced to stay on the hot side. If your room is dropping a good 5 to 10 degrees from what it normally would be, and you're not purposefully brumating that animal for any type of winter period or breeding or anything that you want to do with them, please provide supplemental heat. You don't have to have central heat in your house. A little space heater that works in just a small proximity of one small little bedroom type of area is enough to bring that temperature back up to a comfortable 73 to 75 even. Because the ambient temperature lowering, they're going to change their appetite, they're going to change their behavior, and it opens them up to a lower immune system. They wouldn't be able to fight off things as easily. I just think that it's best to try your best to at least keep the temperature a comfortable level instead of just blaming it on the weather and saying, well, it'll warm up in a couple of months. And the same goes for a really hot summer. I live in Texas, all right? I can put a fan in here. I can lower the wattage on some of my bulbs. I can lower the temperatures on my heat mats, on my thermostats, things like that to keep the animals a lot more comfortable instead of like cooking in their enclosure because it's so hot. Now these are reptiles, so a lot of them would be perfectly okay with that, but like my room temperature animals, I don't want to keep my crested gecko hotter than 80 degrees, and I don't want to keep my chubby frog hotter than 80 degrees either. So I do try and make sure that things don't get that hot. Okay, my next thing is the adopt, don't shop movement. I love the movement. However, I don't think that it works for everyone. I don't think that it should just be never shop in your entire life, you should only adopt. I think it has an important message, and I think that it is important to try and adopt animals like that don't have any other option. However, I don't think that it's bad to buy from a breeder. There are so many responsible breeders, and I think it is important to keep responsible breeders working and open. No backyard breeders and such. Let's not support those. And when it comes to reptiles and things, I don't think it's bad at all to buy from a breeder, especially reputable ones. I think it's okay to go after what you want and get what you want. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. My big thing on Adopt Don't Shop that kind of hurts me is when it comes to birds, they're flooding the shelters as well. There are so many who have been rehomed and who've maybe had a horrible life before and need a second chance or a third or a fourth or a fifth chance. Birds live a very, very long time, so it's very common for them to be rehomed. Birds, because they are so wild and intelligent, they are not domesticated. It can be a lot when they turn to their wild behavior and people don't expect it, they don't know how to redirect it, and they get overwhelmed, and so they just kind of give up. Sadly, that's just the reality of it. People just say, okay, I don't want to deal with this anymore, so here you go. I go back and forth on whether or not I think birds should be kept as pets in the first place, because yes, they are wonderful. I love birds with my whole heart and soul. I'm a bird person. I still feel like I want a bird in my life, even though I go back and forth on whether or not they should be kept as pets. I do plan on getting one again, but I will not be adopting one anymore. With Sydney, I didn't know anything about her. I was so excited. The first couple of days were so exciting to me because I thought, oh my gosh, she's so beautiful and I know she's gonna be sweet. This is gonna be so much fun. It wasn't at all. The only way that I will adopt again in terms of a bird is if I can know that bird first and feel comfortable making that choice. Other than that, I will be going through a breeder or a bird store. I'm sorry, judge me if you want. I will be shopping at this point. Sydney kind of scarred me. I don't think I can do it again. And if I do, it'll be very far in the future. So I like the Adopt Don't Shop movement, but I don't think that it should be shoved down anyone's throat. And I feel like a lot of people do that. They just shove it right on down your throat and say you're a bad person if you don't follow that. I don't think that at all. I think you can be a great person whether you adopt, whether you shop, or whether you do both, or whether you do neither. It's not that serious. Okay, this last one is a big one. It's probably gonna upset some people, and I'm sorry, but it upsets me. So I want to talk about it, and that is keeping cats outside. I have a cat outside. Yes, I'm going to disagree with what a lot of people are saying, but I also agree with so much of this. It doesn't make any sense to agree with the movement and have an outside cat, but please listen to me. Don't automatically judge me. Don't go in the comments saying, well, you're a bad person. Listen to what I have to say, okay? I think that keeping a cat outside could be perfectly fine and safe if it's done correctly and if it's done for the right reasons. When people talk about this, they often talk about feral cats, cats that are not spayed or neutered, multiple cats living outside and just roaming the neighborhood and breeding outside of your window, all this wildlife being killed and getting hit by a car and all this kind of stuff. Listen, I get it, and I fully agree with you. I think that there are a lot of times and a lot of places where that is present. Where I live, where my little bubble is, it's not like that. My cat outside, his name is Chester, and he is 4 years old. He's been outside his entire life. He's been in my yard on my property for his entire life. We've had him for 4 years. He showed up as a stray kitten. Being who I am, I wanted him, okay? And he became our barn cat. We have a barn. He lives in the barn. He sleeps in the barn. He eats in the barn. He lounges in the barn. We have a long driveway. He never goes past the middle of the driveway. He doesn't want to be up where our road is. He's not out there hunting all these animals. We don't have dead squirrels and dead birds and things like plopped out in front of our door. He just kind of like plays. He runs back and forth from tree to tree. He climbs up this tree, he runs back down. Like, he's just chilling, I guess. So in my thought process here is not every cat is the same. He is neutered. He goes to the vet to get checkups regularly. He is fully vaccinated. He's on a monthly flea, tick, heartworm prevention and mosquito repellent medicine. We still have tons of squirrels that run around the property. They have parties on our roof all the time and they dart back and forth from this tree over here to that tree down there. We still have tons of lizards around here. Everywhere we have lizards. Everywhere, you guys. He doesn't mess with them. We have birds all over the place. We have little cardinals that come around all the time. We have little barn wrens that live in the barn where he sleeps. He's not an animal that attacks everything. Do I think that he could? Absolutely, he's a cat. But what I'm telling you guys is that in these 4 years that we've had him, he doesn't go around killing all this natural wildlife that we have in our yard. And he's not going off to other properties to kill wildlife that's in their yard. Another big thing that people talk about is predators out in the world that could come and hurt him. People think that there are coyotes all over the place, or venomous snakes all over the place. Yes, I live in Texas. Yes, we have both of those animals here in Texas, but on my property, we don't have those. We've got the occasional possum, the occasional raccoon, and we have a bunch of deer. And when it comes to snakes, we have like rat snakes. I just feel like I have to defend my cat on certain things that people say about outside cats, because not every threat is the same for every cat, and every cat is not gonna do the exact same things. I don't like that Chester is outside. I hate it. It scares me every day. In the 4 years that I've had Chester, I have tried to bring him in. I can't tell you how many times. And when he's inside this house, he has full-on anxiety attacks. It is the saddest, most depressing thing that I have ever seen a cat do, and I could never watch him do that on a regular basis because I want him inside and because people think that he should be inside. When he comes in this house, within 20 minutes, he's at the door howling. He is foaming at the mouth, just dripping. His whole body is shaking, and he does this thing when he is stressed on his right side where he will just gnaw and chew the inside of his cheek. It's been too many times of me seeing this reaction for me to say, okay, he's just gonna have to get over it, he can be inside. No, when I see this reaction that many times, I say, all right, I can't do this to my cat. I will not watch him behave that way. I will not torture him like that. That's what it makes me think of, is that I'm torturing him, and I won't do it. If he is the type of cat that just truly thrives outside, then that's where he shall be. If you guys want to judge me for having an outside cat based on selfish things, or I don't care about the environment, or I don't care about the cat, those are absolutely false accusations, and I don't appreciate it. I don't want to have arguments with people. You're welcome to leave your thoughts in the comment section, but I stand by what I do. My cat is perfectly healthy and protected and happy outside, and that is the way that it will remain. Will I continue to have outside cats? No, I want to try my best to bring every cat inside that I can, because I do believe that that is safer and the best option. But I also believe that you have to watch your animal and you have to listen to what your animal is telling you in body language. All right, well, now that we have gone through all of these things and I've probably changed some of your opinions on me, we're gonna end this video. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a big thumbs up and hit that subscribe button on your way out. I really appreciate it. Also hit the notification bell so you can know when I upload next, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.